fans, this is the Photoshop Comic Book Man. Well, the big day is upon us. Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice premieres this month. Now, throughout the production process, it seems this film has been seemed controversial at every turn. Before it comes out, I would like to offer my final thoughts on some of the debated topics. It seems that every major casting choice has been met with some degree of controversy. Marvel's Jaimie Alexander was considered a fan favorite for the Wonder Woman role, and fans were upset when the role ultimately went to Gal Gadot. Now, for the record, Jaimie Alexander's status in the Marvel Universe is likely the reason she was not considered for the role. Whether out of contract issues or concerns that she might be too recognizable as the Marvel character to be taken seriously as Wonder Woman. On the one hand, she already has the action experience that would have allowed her to easily slip into the Wonder Woman role. But on the other hand, if she had been cast as Wonder Woman, that could have been seen as her playing the same character, which could have cheapened both roles as well as Alexander's career. Critics of Gadot's casting were upset that she didn't have the Wonder Woman figure, completely forgetting CGI and the vigorous training that some actors go through to prepare for action roles. When the first official image of her was released, I thought she looked fantastic. And the clips of her that have been released since then, of her in the Batman vs. Superman, and the subsequent footage released of the upcoming Wonder Woman film, I think she's going to do a great job in the role, and I look forward to seeing it. The choice to cast Ben Affleck as Batman could arguably be considered one of the most controversial casting choices in cinematic history. The news was immediately met with a firestorm of outrage from fans. Some fans started petitions demanding his removal from the role, and, like with a lot of things, the memes went flying.
But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "They picked Ben Affleck to play the Dark Knight?"
Many people who criticized his casting referenced his disastrous role in Daredevil. Affleck once remarked that Daredevil had inoculated himself against playing another superhero, and when Snyder initially approached him, he was reluctant to accept, feeling he didn't fit the traditional mold. But when Snyder showed him the concept, Affleck got excited about it. Now, Ben Affleck has made successful movies since Daredevil. He is a very accomplished actor, and I trust him enough that I don't think he would have agreed to this role if he didn't think he could do a good job. The advantage to a masked superhero character is that the man under the mask can be anyone. The images that have been released so far looked ripped straight from the comics. The influence of the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel is very clear, and the footage that has come out so far is pretty hardcore. So I'm confident Ben Affleck can be a great Batman. What I'm not too sure about is whether he can be a good Bruce Wayne. Instead of Affleck playing the dual role of Bruce Wayne and Batman, I'm concerned that his A-list status may outshine the character, where it looks more like Batman's secret identity is Ben Affleck. As far as casting choices are concerned, the one I personally am still having trouble with is Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Even with the trailers, I still feel that Eisenberg is too small and baby-faced for the longtime nemesis of the Man of Steel. I feel Luthor has consistently been and should continue to be a towering figure able to look Superman in the eye, and this guy is intimidated by Clark Kent.
Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?
Lex.
Hi, hello. Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
After seeing him in the trailers, I feel he's too jovial. And rather than exert an air of confidence, he seems to be desperately trying to measure up to the giants around him. Now, if the producers are trying to play up a Napoleon complex with him, I can understand that, but as of right now, I am still not convinced. Going back to the casting of Batman, for people who still think they should have used Christian Bale, here is why that would have been a bad idea. Bale's Batman got his rear handed to him by a watered-down incarnation of Bane. The concept of Batman fighting Superman is still mind-boggling to people I talk to who are unfamiliar with with their bouts throughout comic book history. To use Bale's Batman would have been worse. The Dark Knight trilogy was brought to a satisfying conclusion, with Batman faking his death and going into retirement, and the Robin character poised to take on the mantle. Now, before anyone says, but Batman could come back to life like characters do all the time, remember, Bruce Wayne also faked his death. All his assets were gone, and his mansion was donated to the orphanage. To resurrect Bale's Batman would have opened too many complicated questions that would have spoiled the character and as well as the whole movie. It would have also forced the producers to honor an existing canon instead of taking the character in their own direction, in a similar manner as when they announced that the TV and film universes would remain separate, a move which I applauded as it allows for more varied and frequent interpretations of our favorite characters. Bale himself admitted that he wanted to play Batman again, but he stated that his Batman did not belong in another film. Now, to those who might say, well, he could have played Batman in a reboot, easier said than done. Justin Hartley was not considered for the TV series Arrow because they did not want it to be seen as a spin-off of Smallville, and Gerard Christopher was rejected from consideration for Lois and Clark when they realized he had been previously starred in The Adventures of Superboy. To Marvel or not to Marvel, that is the question. One of the biggest criticisms I've seen is that DC is not following the Marvel route, setting up each character with their own solo movie before finally building up to Justice League. As more character castings were revealed, people began crying out, "They're moving too fast, the movie is getting too crowded." Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have all been around for about 75 years now. Superman and Batman have more live-action, theatrical, and television appearances than any other comic book character, and the Wonder Woman TV series starring Linda Carter remains iconic to this day. These characters are as ingrained in mainstream culture as they are in the comics, and most people, even those who try to avoid the genre at all costs, could probably tell you the basic origins of the characters. So with that being said, I think we can safely move forward without having to have an origin story for each character. Man of Steel was an exception because Superman is the first and foremost character of DC Comics, and the film set the tone of the new universe. But as an example to the Marvel wayist, there are two reasons why moving straight from Man of Steel to a Batman origin film would not have been a good idea. Number one, it would have had to compete with the legacy of the Christian Bale films still fresh on everybody's minds. People would have been crossing the new Batman's performance with the old one without having the chance to see the character do something he had never before done in film. Two, the film would have had to be flashback, as you could not start the origin of Batman with the events of Man of Steel. Even with Wonder Woman coming out next year as a flashback, the events of Man of Steel were so earth-shattering, so fiercely debated, that the immediate sequel must address them. Before Marvel Studios was founded, the idea of a live-action Hollywood blockbuster crossing over the major characters seemed unlikely, and previous attempts to do so never made it past the drawing board. Now that Marvel Studios has proven that it can be done, DC is ready to leap forward. And they obviously feel, as I do, that the characters are strong enough and sufficiently known as to be able to move forward with a team-up now. Another thing to consider, the Avengers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe were initially formed in preparation for an Earth-threatening crisis. The Justice League in this universe will likely come together, as they have before in various mediums, in response to an Earth-threatening crisis. Marvel started out with a plan with the basic story in mind, to build up each individual story in a way that would feed into an eventual Avengers movie. DC has their own plan, to bring the characters together now and branch off from there. As another example to the people who insist on having an origin story for every character, how many people who saw the 2012 Avengers movie never saw any of the preceding Marvel films? Do you really expect me to believe that casual moviegoers were sitting outside the theater going, well, you know, I'd love to see that movie, but I understand there's about 5 other movies I have to catch up on first? In fact, I challenge you all to go back and re-watch the Avengers movie and try to imagine yourself as if you had never seen any of the preceding films. How lost are you really? One example for me personally is when I saw James Cameron's Avatar when it aired on television. I actually came in about halfway through the movie. Normally I cannot get involved in a movie if I didn't see the beginning of it, but in this case, 5 minutes and I was hooked. Another example, I saw Shanghai Nights before I saw its prequel, Shanghai Noon, and I was not lost one bit. The fact of the matter is, as popular as the superhero genre may be, superhero films cannot survive at the box office on nerds alone. While the concept of a shared cinematic universe is awesome, each individual film still needs to be made enjoyable to the broadest audience possible who may or may not have seen the preceding films. The 2012 Avengers movie made more than $1.5 billion worldwide. I promise you it would not have made that much if enjoyment of the film depended on a knowledge of every intimate detail of the preceding films. To all the haters who say DC is just playing catch-up with Marvel, you're right. Since Marvel has become so successful with this shared universe, DC has been under pressure to get with it. But my question to you is this. Is that going to stop you from seeing this movie? We have spent so much time arguing about how quick or slow DC should be moving that we've been neglecting the most exciting part about this whole thing. We are finally seeing these characters come together for the first time in a live-action Hollywood production, when just a few years ago that seemed unlikely to ever occur. A blog post I saw several months ago raised the point that if DC followed the Marvel route and succeeded, they would have just been accused of ripping off Marvel. So in the end, they need to be allowed to go their own route. I suppose the final big controversy is that the trailers have supposedly ruined the movie. The trailers have been criticized for revealing too much of the plot. One of the big spoilers is that the heroes will unite to fight Doomsday. I personally don't see the big deal. I don't consider the movie ruined for me. Anyone with a passing knowledge of superhero history could derive the whole plot of the movie just from the title. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Batman and Superman are going to start out in opposition until a major crisis forces them together, which leads to the formation of the Justice League. As pointed out by Rob Tourneau of Newsworks, the trailer was made to appeal to the broadest audience. Personally, I can understand the need to reveal a little more information, as I'm still hearing from people who, not knowing the superhero history, ask me the question, why would Batman and Superman be fighting against each other? Besides, it's not like it's the first time a major plot detail has been spoiled by the trailer. Anyone who saw the trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 2 knew that Gwen Stacy was going to die. And to anyone who felt spoiled by the revelation that Doomsday would appear, was that really much of a spoiler? In Man of Steel, Superman beats the Kryptonian invasion pretty much by himself. Destroyed half of Metropolis in the process, but he still did it. So after Man of Steel, what threat could you have that would be strong enough to bring Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and possibly the other heroes that will eventually form the Justice League together? Let's face it, there aren't that many options. Alien invasion? Too predictable, too repetitive. Darkseid? That would be too much too soon. And I guarantee you, if they had moved with gone with Darkseid in this movie, there would be people crying, "Look at Marvel! They're taking 3 Avengers movies before they finally bring in Thanos." Throughout this entire process, it seems that every major decision the producers have made have gone against what the fans have expected. Which means they are taking things, which means they have their own direction in mind for where they want to go with the story. The way I see it is this. If you hated Man of Steel, I doubt anything they do in the sequel will make you like it better. If you loved Man of Steel, trust that the same people involved know what they're doing. This has been the Photoshop Comic Book Man. Thank you for watching this video presentation, and be sure to check out my movie pilot and my Facebook pages. Stay tuned for updates on future projects. See you soon.